The Florida Gators are broke. The Florida Gators are poor. The Florida Gators are cheap. Wah. Jaden Baugh is back for the 2026 season, and Eagan Boyer, offensive tackle from Penn State, has committed to the Florida Gators.
You are Locked On Gators, your daily podcast on the Florida Gators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Locked On Gators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every damn day. And I mean, apparently we're going to go live 45 times today. I am Brandon Olsen, the host of Locked On Gators, a lifelong Florida Gators fan, and damn does it feel good to be a Florida Gator today. The Florida Gators have landed a commitment from offensive tackle Eagan Boyer out of Penn State, but more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, he's back. Jaden Baugh is back for another year in Gainesville, despite all of the, oh, they're poor, oh, they're cheap, oh, they're gonna lose him, oh, this Texas has money. Texas can have all the money in the world. The Florida Gators have Jaden Baugh. No one else has Jaden Baugh. Okay? It's as simple as that. The Florida Gators have Jaden Baugh. He's back after an awesome season. 1,000 yard season, 1,168 yards to be exact. That's a dude. And now we know his running mate in the backfield as well. Duke Clark should be back for 2026, right? And earlier today, you got the commitment from Evan Pryor out of Cincinnati. You got speed, you got your thunder, you got your lightning, you got everything that you need on this team in this backfield with an offensive line that's now coming a little bit closer together with the additions of TJ Shanahan earlier today and Eagan Boyer about 15 minutes ago. The Florida Gators, I'm not going to say it. F it. I'm going to say it. Ladies and gentlemen, we might be back. We just might be back in Gainesville. Okay? We're at least on the way, right? The Florida Gators are looking a lot more threatening for next year. They're looking a lot more dangerous for next year. And this isn't the Billy Napier, we're closer to dangerous. This is we're getting dangerous here. Right, yeah, that's a good point. Zach Fink said, drop the may because let's drop the might, right? Let's drop the might of we might be back. Let's drop the might because we're back. Gators back. No other way to put it. Jaden Baugh is back for the Florida Gators. Hell of a time. And we got the elite back, right? That everybody was freaking out about. Everybody went crazy about that he was going to leave. But here he is. He's going to be a Gator. You got number 13 back. He's here. How's that feel? The Florida Gators had some big questions, right? And they seem to have been at least a little bit answered. You know, we were sitting here waiting for Jaden Baugh's decision that everybody was asking about for, weeks, right? For days and weeks. And we were sitting here asking and waiting and trying to get that response and trying to go for it and trying to get the answer of just what is Jaden Baugh going to do. And ladies and gentlemen, it turns out Jaden Baugh is going to be a Florida Gator. That's what it turns out he's going to do. That's what Jaden Baugh decided to do. Jaden Baugh said, you know what? Despite Texas trying to throw money at me, despite other schools trying to throw money at me, entice me to come into the portal. No. I want to know what my O-line is going to look like. I want to win football games. And now my offensive line picture is getting a little bit clearer. And it looks like Florida might be a little more threatening to win some football games in 2026. And we now have an NFL running back leading the way for the Florida Gators. I'll tell you what, we got this. I'm going to rip this right out the stand so we could I'm just going to, that's it. That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do for the Florida Gators. We got Jaden Baugh back. That's a big addition, right? Or a big retention. And that's part of winning in the transfer portal. That's part of dominating in the transfer portal, is retaining your talent that is entering the transfer portal or potentially entering the transfer portal or is getting enticed to enter the transfer portal, because the Florida Gators have had plenty of players that other teams have tried to entice to enter the transfer portal. But the Florida Gators have retained Jaden Baugh. The biggest possible retention they could have had. Bigger than Vernell Brown III. Bigger than Dallas Wilson. Bigger than Jaden Woods. So I see you in the chat. I see a bunch of you going, oh, you got to get Jaden Woods back. You got to. You do. But just keep in mind, the biggest possible retention, bigger than, I know some people are probably going to disagree with this one, bigger than the Miles Graham retention, bigger than anybody, was keeping Jaden Baugh. 1,168 rushing yards last year, 5.5 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns. Okay. 767 rushing yards after contact in 2025. Okay. As a pass catcher, 33 catches, the second most catches on the entire team last year went to Jaden Baugh. 210 receiving yards, 2 touchdowns to Jaden Baugh. And now he's going to have a better offensive system around him. We know that. Regardless of anything else, we know he's going to have a better offensive system around him. He's probably going to have a better, at least run blocking offensive line. Right? He's going to have this crazy concept that we haven't had in Gainesville in a long time. Competent coaching. And hopefully, I like broke the mic stand, I think, when I picked it up to do the mic drop. And I don't regret it at all. You know, I'll fix things when I fix things. We'll say that. I'll fix things when I fix them. But the Florida Gators also have this crazy new thing for 2026 that they didn't have in 2025, which is a quarterback that can play after 1906 when the forward pass was invented. That's what you have. The Florida Gators are putting, I wish I had a belt near me right now, but the Florida Gators are putting belt to ass on everybody today. You got 1,000 transfer portal commits today, and you retained Jaden Baugh, and John Summerall's coaching staff is officially signing, right? We've gotten the official announcements for Jonathan Galante, special teams coordinator, for Bam Hardman, outside linebackers coach, and for Phil Trautwein, offensive line coach. You've got that. I'm not saying Florida is going to make the College Football Playoff in 2026 or anything like that. But what I am saying is that Florida went from 24 hours ago, 36 hours ago, hell, 12 hours ago, to, oh no, we're poor, we're broke, we don't spend money, we're going to lose everybody, we're not going to sign anybody, it's just going to be backups the whole time. And look at that. Look at that. The Florida Gators have added, what, 6 transfer portal commits today? 6? 7? 6, 7. No, genuinely, it's 6. It's 6. You got Evan Pryor earlier. You had the stretch of 4. And then you have now Eagan Boyer here. But Florida got him. Florida's doing it. Like, Florida went from, oh, they're just getting backups and rotational players, and they're just going bargain bin shopping. To today, going the old like, I'm going to take a whole bunch of tissues right here for this because this is what we're doing. But this is like the old, like the Floyd Mayweather gif, when it's just like, guess what? Running back 2, quarterback 1, potentially. Offensive lineman starting. Potential offensive lineman starting. Running back 1 retained. Like, that's all it was. It's just throwing money, throwing bags, getting a hell of a lot more threatening for 2026. That's what this is. All that quick trigger complaining has now resulted in Florida retaining the best running back they've had in a very, very long time. in Florida now adding their potential starting quarterback. This is Florida putting belt to ass in this transfer portal window right now. You could be excited. You could be excited. Like you're allowed to be excited. Because Florida's adding today starter quality players. And the biggest move they've made this whole offseason outside of hiring a new coach, retaining Jaden Baugh. That's it. Again, that's the best player you could have retained. I don't care what his stats are ever going to look like. I don't care if he's ever going to get the All-American nod that he deserves if you're going purely off talent. I don't care about any of that. I care about you retained an NFL draft pick, an early NFL draft pick at running back. Okay. Mac Attack, I second that statement you just, I haven't really looked at the chat, but I second that statement that you just sent. All right. I'm not allowed to put it on the screen, but just know if I could, it'd be right up there. Jaden Baugh is going to be in the NFL. It's unquestionable, like unquestioned, no doubt about it. He's an NFL running back. You're going to have him for one more year in Gainesville. He's going to play one more year of college football before he goes on and starts kicking ass on Sundays, right? Jaden Baugh is going to play one more year of college football. And a lot of people thought that he'd be playing that in Austin, Texas. But instead, Jaden Baugh, for his one final year of college football before going to the NFL, has said, you know what? I'm going to do that right here. I'm going to play that one final year of football in Gainesville, Florida, in the Swamp, the greatest stadium in college football, the greatest environment in college football. The Summerall era is here. And I don't know how to put this other than I'm going to mute myself. I'm probably going to mute myself a second early and unmute myself a second late because I don't want to get in trouble for saying this. But the Florida Gators are simply put no longer in the transfer portal. Okay? They're no longer doing that. They're no longer scared about it. They're no longer scared about a damn thing. They're coming here to kick ass and win football games and build this program back up. Jaden Baugh is here. He was in Gainesville to begin with, and he's in Gainesville still because that's where he wants to finish his college career, where he started. That's where he wants to finish his college career before going to the NFL. That's what he decided to do. And other players decided to join him, right? Including offensive tackle Eagan Boyer, who also committed to the Florida Gators. We're going to talk about him when we get back with Locked On Gators. Let's be real. Managing your finances can feel overwhelming, right? Between subscriptions that you forgot about, bills that just keep going up, and trying to figure out where all the money actually goes each month, it's easy to feel like you're losing control. And who has time to track every transaction or hunt down hidden fees? That's where Rocket Money comes in, the personal finance app that helps you take control. That's it. I've said I use spreadsheets all the time to track everything. No longer because of Rocket Money. It finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join at rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. The Florida Gators have retained Jadan Baugh because they're simply like that, as is he. The Florida Gators have added Eagan Boyer to the offensive line in their transfer portal class. And the Florida Gators, well, I said this yesterday, and I think some fans disagreed with it because we were talking about a lot of rotational players. But the Florida Gators, they got better today. Yeah, the Florida Gators got better today. And there's no doubt about that at all. They retained Jaden Baugh. And despite, everybody thinking that he was going to be on, everybody thinking, oh, Texas is going to get him. Texas is going to do this. Texas is dropping bags for him. Texas. Who cares? Hey, Patrick, what am I? I don't know. Stupid? No, I'm Texas. What's the difference? There isn't one. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Texas can be all Texas wants to be. I want you to know also, Texas getting Relika Brown from Arizona State has nothing to do with them pursuing Jaden Baugh. They were still trying to get Jaden Baugh, but they didn't get Jaden Baugh because he's going to be a Florida Gator for 2026. He decided that. Eagan Boyer is going to be blocking for him potentially. Appreciate you, Andres. I appreciate you. I'll tell you what, real quick. When I worked retail, I had my boss was from Texas, and me and a coworker did that bit, and he was furious, and it was one of the greatest days of work that I've ever had. But the Florida Gators have retained Jaden Baugh, and the Florida Gators have added 2 Penn State offensive linemen to their transfer portal class today, right? We spoke about TJ Shanahan earlier, and then there's Eagan Boyer. And here's where the mood's going to come a little bit down, because when we were talking about just Jaden Baugh, it was like, oh yeah, belt to ass, run the ball, do whatever it is. Now we're talking about bringing in the Penn State offensive linemen that are going to lead him. Yes, that's right, Bechet, Tuck Fexus. And Penn State's offensive line included TJ Shanahan at guard and Eagan Boyer at tackle. And Eagan Boyer was not this, big time contributor. He wasn't. He's a true sophomore this year, or I want to say redshirt freshman this year, but he was academically a sophomore. He was in his second year. And he was on Penn State's team, did not really play until the bowl game. And when he played the bowl game against Clemson, I'm not going to lie to you guys, it didn't go very well for him, right? It didn't go very well for him. I don't view him 6'8", 302 pounds. There's a lot of people that on social media have talked about Eagan Boyer as like, well, there's your left tackle. There's your guy. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that the plan is to bring him in and have him be your starting left tackle immediately. Where's Anthony? I don't know who the Anthony you're talking about is. But yeah, I don't think that that Eagan Boyer is brought in to be this definitive elite, like immediate starting tackle. I don't think that's the case. He's behind Drew Shelton, by the way, Drew Shelton, good left tackle at Penn State. So it's not like he was behind a bum. He played against Clemson in the bowl game. It did not go in his favor. It was not a great game for him. I know that there's people that went, I think it was on social media. I saw someone say he held his own. He didn't get completely dominated, but he did not play a good game against Clemson. Okay. And that's okay. Clemson's a damn good defensive front. I know they haven't won as many games in the recent years. They've still had an elite defensive line often. So look at that. But Eagan Boyer is someone that I view as he's going to compete for a starting spot this year. Based on the 2025 film against Clemson, I do not think that he will win that starting tackle job. Okay. I think that Florida could have that competition and he can be in there. And again, I don't think he will win it, but I do think that it'd be quality depth and also important to remember he's got 3 years of eligibility remaining. Not 1, not 2, 3 years of eligibility remaining. He is someone that has plenty of time to develop and grow. That's what this is. Again, the Florida Gators under John Summerall are not just using the transfer portal to say, hey, everybody we get is starting. They are using it to add players where they go, hey, we want to just add this guy and let him contribute. By the way, I'm going to send this link in the chat now. If you want to join the Everydayer Club here at Locked On, there's a Discord where you could talk to other fans of other teams and other schools, and we could talk trash. It's a good time. I'm not going to lie. I enjoy messing with Auburn and Kentucky fans. That's fun for me, at least. I'm a generational hater. I've always said that. But I think adding Eagan Boyer is to just add competition on the offensive line. Only had 100 or so snaps on the year, though. So how much film is there really? Well, that's what I'm saying. The film from the Clemson game, he played 84 offensive snaps this year. 78 of them were against Clemson. So you just watch the Clemson game and you go, that's the film that was available this year. But it's also important to go, like Syke just mentioned, Also, Psych, I'm sorry. You asked a question in one of the earlier streams, and I think I said I would get to it, and I don't remember if I actually got to it or if I forgot. And so if you remember that question, you want to ask it again, go ahead and I'll get to it. But I forgot what that was. But so you can watch the Clemson game for Eagan Boyer, and it's not a great game for him, right? But also you can acknowledge he was a redshirt freshman playing 78 snaps, and you watch that film and you see what you have. But then you also realize you're watching one game from a player. You can watch it. You can watch every snap he's played of his career. It's 135 offensive snaps. You can watch all 135 offensive snaps. That's 2 full games. Like that's 2 full games of offensive snaps for Eagan Boyer. So while we can watch those snaps and try to come to some kind of conclusion, that's not enough to say we know what he is. The film that we have seen, the film that I have seen, again, the Clemson game is what I've put all my stock into because 2024 was playing a couple games here and there. And then that was kind of it, maintaining his red shirt. And then in 2025, didn't play offensively other than the Clemson bowl game. And this year, of course, he played special teams a lot. And then offense, he played really one game. He had 4 snaps against Villanova, 2 against Michigan State, and then 78 against Clemson. And that Clemson game, again, the film is not great, but you need to take into account you're watching a redshirt freshman play against a good defensive front. While he is coming here, and I do think that he's going to be given an opportunity to compete for a starting spot in 2026, I do not expect him to be the starting offensive lineman, starting left tackle in 2026. I expect him to be a backup, and then in 2027, we have a more legitimate conversation. But even then, we have basically 2 full games of film on Eagan Boyer. Phil Trautwein has 2 full years of coaching him, watching him practice, watching how he practices, watching how he operates in the weight room, watching him do all those things. Phil Trautwein has 2 years watching him. We have 2 games, basically. I will take Phil Trautwein's opinion here over mine, over anybody's. And again, I've said Phil Trautwein and Gerald Chapman are the only 2 coaches where I say my opinion of the player, I will put your opinion of the player over mine. I don't do that for a lot of coaches. That's just not how I work. I know people try to be like, I know people try to think that I'm this like know-it-all, I'm smarter than you kind of like mentality person. I think part of evaluating players, which I've been doing for almost a decade now professionally, I think part of that is being confident in your opinion, being confident in what you're seeing. And with Eagan Boyer, I didn't see awesome. I saw tools, but technique needed a lot of work. Phil Trautwein can see those tools. Phil Trautwein can see that work ethic. He saw all that in Penn State. He saw all that in the weight room. He saw all that. Like he knows what he has generally, or he knows what he can have when Eagan Boyer puts it together. Okay? I will take Phil Trautwein's evaluation of Eagan Boyer, where he actually gets to see him every day for 2 years. I will easily take that opinion over mine. No problem. Again, he wasn't a starting offensive lineman at Penn State, which had a bunch of upperclassmen starting. And by the way, they were good upperclassmen. Like, it's not like he was the backup on a crappy offensive line. He was the backup on what was still a really good offensive line. And so I don't view him as someone that is going to start in 2026. Again, I think he'll be given an opportunity to compete for it. I just do not think that he will win that battle. Unless he takes significant developmental strides, or unless the offensive tackles in Gainesville already really are not ready. Okay? If it were up to me, if I had a say, I would try to get a more proven offensive tackle. I'd go to the G5 and I'd say, hey, who is a quality offensive tackle that's in the G5 or that's in the transfer portal from the G5? How would you like to come to Gainesville? I think that's the way you could look at it. Or you know, maybe lower P4, right? Like there's guys there that we could talk about. And we could say, hey, maybe he's someone that Florida should look at. I know Sam Houston, Colt Dietrich, one of the best G5 offensive linemen, G5, G6, whatever you want to call him. There it is. Like, maybe he's a name to look at. I don't think he is, but maybe he's a name that they'll look at. Again, I don't think he is, but maybe. The point is just there are names out there in the portal where you could say, hey, if you're a G5 guy, you're going to command less money. If you are a power 4 guy that hasn't been a starter, you're going to command less money. But also, like, the point of going into a portal for getting experienced offensive linemen is to get a guy that's been a starter. So if it were up to me, Florida should still be in the market for a starting quality offensive lineman in the transfer portal. If it were up to me. We're officially announcing some more coaches. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but Florida chose today to be the day that they're just putting out all of their tweets. We got Joe Craddock posted. We've had a bunch posted, but I do think that this is a very good time to acknowledge that the loud majority of Florida Gators fans on social media that have been complaining about Florida being broke and Florida being cheap and Florida being poor, I do think that, and I'm saying this with 300 people in here, which is more than we usually have for a live show, but I'm saying this with 300 people in here because it's true, and I want Florida Gators fans to know this. For all the public, we're poor, we're broke, we're cheap, we're trying to bargain bin shop, we're trying to do all this stuff. The great players on this team, which Florida still did have great players. I know they won 4 games, and I know a lot of those players could go happily and just say, all right, deuces, and call it a day, and there's plenty that we won't miss, right? But the good players on this team, the Jaden Baughs of the world, right? The Cormani McLeans of the world, the Vernell Browns, the Dallas Wilsons, the Miles Grahams, the Jaden Robinsons, the Bryce Thorntons, those guys, they are not cheap to retain. Florida spent a lot of money to retain this roster so far. They're spending money in the portal to bring in guys that might start, guys that are going to rotate, and guys that are going to be depth. But I just want to make it clear for the people that are saying, hey, Florida doesn't have money to do this, Florida doesn't have money to do that. A lot of those people do not know what the hell they're talking about. And I say that as someone that is very openly and very publicly someone that I say I don't usually try to talk about money. I don't, because I think that money in college football, like, we don't get the actual numbers. We don't get the actual budget that they have. We don't get a lot of that. And I think it's clear, and I think it's important to remember this and important to acknowledge this, that we don't get that information. It's not public like the NFL. Okay. We don't have that freely at our fingertips. We don't get that often. But what is important is that the Florida Gators are retaining talent. Okay. They're retaining damn good football players. They're spending money to retain these players. And I also think it's important to acknowledge, because I really do think that this points toward coach buy-in or player buy-in to the coaches, that for the players that Florida got out of the transfer portal so far, as in players that were not on Florida's roster last year and are on Florida's roster in 2026 or will be on Florida's roster in 2026, a lot of those players, Florida was not the highest bidder on. Okay? Florida was not offering the most money. A lot of the players that are being retained in Gainesville, Florida is not the highest bidder for. Okay? I want to make that abundantly clear because I think that's really important. That these guys are not just taking the highest offer. It is not as simple as go spend money, go do this. No. Florida is, Brandon, you heard the number on the bag that you have handed over to keep ball. I've heard numbers. I don't share numbers because I don't believe the numbers that I hear. It's honestly as simple as that. I don't believe the own numbers. Like the numbers that I'm being told, I don't even believe. Okay? And so I don't share those numbers because I think that's spreading potential misinformation. Okay. And so I don't like to share that information. Again, because I don't believe it and I don't want to spread information that I don't believe. But I do know that I've spoken to players that have been like, yeah, Florida's not the biggest offer. Florida's not even close to the like Florida. I don't want to say not even close, but that Florida is, considerably lower offer. But they're still coming here. And so I think that that's really important to acknowledge when we talk about how players are buying into the coaching staff. Okay? Players are turning down more money elsewhere to come in. And I don't mean that to be like a whole like pat on the back type thing of like, oh, we're so great and dandy and this and they're coming. No. Okay. I'm not saying that to say we're the greatest team that's ever lived right now. I am saying though that players are buying into this coaching staff. Okay. The portal players that are coming in oftentimes right now are players that like we've seen so far. You've got a few starters, right? But you have a lot of guys who are coming in to compete for playing time and compete for a starting spot and compete for a rotational spot. It's competition. Okay. It's competition for the Florida Gators. And we are potentially going to kick a bit of ass. All right. Just want to throw that out there. Potentially going to kick a bit of ass this year. I'm not saying Florida's going to win 10 games. I see people saying that. I'm not saying 10. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not saying 10. The number that I put when the schedule came out was, I believe, 8. I'm still good with saying like 8 should be what they get. Because I think you have competent coaching and I think you've got a talented roster again. Florida just might be back. Just want to throw that out there. Florida just might be back. All right. You've still got a lot of work to do in the portal, by the way. I still think that you should get a starting quality offensive tackle. You still need to either retain Jaden Woods or go get a starting quality edge. Could be Adam Trick, but again, I think Adam Trick's going to break the bank for a team. I think he's one hell of a pass rusher. So we'll see about that. The Jacksonville State defensive end, outside linebacker, edge player, whatever you want to, however you want to call him, refer to him, whatever that is. Emmanuel Oyebadejo. I don't know how it's pronounced. I'm sorry. I think he's good. I'd rather have Jaden Woods. I'll say that. But I think that Emmanuel Oyebadejo is someone that can come in and contribute right away. For saying Woods and Trick, I doubt that. That's going to be a hefty price tag you're throwing out there. So there's that. You still need, I think, another receiver out of the portal. That's a starter quality. I think depth-wise, you're really good. Youth can really, like the young players can rotate and contribute early. But I would still like to see a starter quality guy come in there to pair with, not pair because 3, but to form a trio, I guess, with Burnell Brown the third and Dallas Wilson, who, by the way, we have not seen either of them play a full season. I think that's also important to acknowledge that they're tremendous young talents, but we've not seen either of them play a full season. Add talent around them. I still think you need to add a flex tight end. I still, again, like I said, would add a starting quality offensive tackle. The interior, if you finish adding Harrison Moore from Georgia Tech, I think you're good on the interior. Running back, I think you're good. Quarterback, I would like you to add another transfer portal quarterback to come in and compete. But I don't know how reasonable that is. And also, I don't think that's a priority for them right now. Maybe later in the cycle, if there's a guy who feels like he got pushed out or something like that, they go get a veteran that can just come in and be a veteran in the room, maybe. But we'll see about that. Defensively, give me a starting nose tackle. 3 tech, especially if you are capable of moving LJ McCray inside. I'm happy with 3 tech. Okay. Corner, you could use some more competition. Nickel, I don't know what your plan is there. I think DJ Coleman's going to play safety. So I don't know what you're going to see at nickel there. Linebacker, you're good. Special teams, you're good. Still need a long snapper, I guess, but kicker, punter, return men, you've got. This is now the Florida Gators roster kind of coming to fruition. And while we can have a bunch of Florida Gators fans, and this isn't to sound attacking, right? Because every fan base is doing this. Like when I say, oh, we have Florida Gators fans doing this, it's not to say that Florida fans are the only fans doing this, right? It's not just like, oh yeah, our fan base does this and no one else does this. It's every fan base does this. But I'm talking about Florida because that's frankly the only fan base I care about. And Toledo, I'll say that, Florida and Toledo, but Toledo is much more like, hey, we'll get what we can get. We got Mike Jacobs at head coach now. We're gonna have faith in that. So it's those two fan bases, right? And Florida obviously care way more about. So I will say, like we have fans talking about what you have, what you don't have, what you're missing, what you want to see with this, with that. Adding all these rotational players that people are pissed about. Florida is adding those rotational players because they're treating the transfer portal like legitimate free agency. They're going into the transfer portal like an NFL team going into free agency. And the NFL team can say, hey, we need a running back 2 or 3, depending on, if they win. We need a wide receiver 5. We need a tight end 3. We need a whatever, all that stuff. We need those things. Billy Napier, he used high school to replace that, right? Yeah, Jay Diz, I went to Toledo. I'm from New York, but I went to Toledo. And so while Billy Napier went, oh, we're going to use high school players to replace that, because the Billy Napier hierarchy, I guess, in roster building was like, you have your starter here, whoever that may be, and he, let's say, graduates. Then you would say, all right, well, do our younger players step up to replace that, or do we need to go to the portal to get a starter? But when we're talking about depth, Billy Napier kind of just meant high school players are going to replace that. John Summerall is like, hey, I want good quality football players to replace that. I had someone send a message to the Insider program before, which is joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGators. If you want, we're giving constant updates about all this stuff. And we had people asking, about Florida potentially getting a top 5 recruiting class next year. That's not happening. It's just not. This coaching staff is going to want to use the transfer portal more. They're going to try to get high quality high school freshmen or high quality high school recruits, and then use portal to fill out depth and everything. They're kind of saying, hey, I'd rather have experienced depth than rely on depth that hasn't played college football before. That's essentially what they're doing. That's the transfer portal approach there. And honestly, I'm cool with seeing how it goes. He's had some, should I put aside my Napier PTSD? Yes, Toby. But like John Summerall, that's the way he's done it everywhere. And part of it is because he had to do it that way. Right? Every year he had players poached. But now he's choosing to build his team that way. A lot of the players that left, I'm not doing the whole oh yeah, well, players left because they were pushed out. There were players that Florida wanted to keep that they just did not agree financially, which is fair, right? I don't blame Florida or the player for valuing themselves differently. We heard it with Mekhi Boyer, was that, they were far apart financially. You could say, hey, I would have paid him. But again, the reason I don't talk about money much with these players is because I don't know how to properly judge anything about these, the actual finances here. We don't know what Florida's actual real budget is because it can change. They can have a booster that's you know what? I like how this is going. Give me more money, or I'll give you more money, or maybe less. We that can change. There's no salary cap that we know every team has. I try not to talk about money because I don't know the market value of all the players. In the NFL, I could see what every player's making, and I could say, hey, you should be making more than this guy. You should be making more than this guy. That's where we're going to rank you. In college, you don't get that. A lot of it's smoke and mirrors. A lot of it, players have incentives in their contracts now, or playing time incentives, elevators, escalators, whatever you want to call them. Players have all these different things. How did a New Yorker become a Gator fan? I spent every summer of my childhood with family in Central Florida, and I've been a Gator fan literally my entire life. So that's how. And so that's why I try not to talk about money with stuff like that. It doesn't matter. He picked right. That's why I try not to talk too much about money with things like that, because it's information that we don't actually know the answer to. And we don't actually have that full information like the NFL. So I try not to harp too much on it. But like, if Florida says, hey, like, I don't want to pay $500,000 for this player, whoever it may be, and that player's like, okay, well, I want $500,000. Florida says, hey, we value you as a $200,000 player. I don't want Florida essentially overpaying because they don't want to lose the player. There's some players it's acceptable for, but it's stuff like that. Like, it's hard for me to get mad at stuff like that because it's just how you value. Like, I don't want you overpaying for things if you don't think that is something that is worth that money, then sure, don't overpay. And so people can complain about that, right? You're totally valid to complain about that. But Florida right now is trying to find players that are in their value that they want and can contribute. They're overpaying for some of these guys. They're going to overpay for some. Doesn't mean they're the highest offer. Doesn't mean they're the highest bidder, whatever you want to call it. But Florida's using the transfer portal to fill out their roster with experienced quality depth like free agency. Okay, they're not trying to do this whole like, oh, we're going to spend billions of dollars. Right? We're not Texas Tech, who, by the way, Texas Tech, one of the highest paid rosters in college football, right? In 2025. Ohio State, one of the highest paid rosters in college football, right? Texas A&M, one of the higher paid rosters in college football. LSU, also up there. LSU didn't make the playoffs, fired their head coach. Texas A&M got bounced in the first round. Ohio State got bounced in their first game. Texas Tech didn't score a touchdown in their college football playoff game. It's not just about who spends more, right? Indiana, I don't know what they're spending, but I don't think that they are one of the highest paid rosters in college football. But they're just going out there and kicking ass. It's a combination of your quality of coaching, your scheme, your players that you have. And yes, part of that is how much you're investing financially. But part of it is also how you spend that money overall. Or part of it is how much you're investing. Part of it is how you're investing. And for Florida right now, the way that they're investing is, let's go get some quality experienced depth, and those are going to be our backups. Like, those are going to be the guys where if a starter gets hurt, let's say someone that we can bring up from the portal class right now. Let's say Bailey Stockton, right? Bailey Stockton has experience, not super productive. And again, he came over from the portal. I do not think he came over to be a starter. I think he came over to be a rotational piece. Okay, Florida and John Summerall, they now go, okay, well, if something happens and he needs to play more significant snaps, I at least have a general idea of what he looks like playing on a larger sample size than a freshman coming in that hasn't played. Like, I at least have seen him play significant snaps, and so I know what he can do generally. And Florida now has that they can talk about, that they can kind of hang their hat on. Like, that's the approach, is that, and I think that's important to acknowledge when we talk about, bringing in rotational players from the portal and people getting mad. Yeah, Jaden Baugh is back in 2026. Like, when we talk about using the portal to bring in rotational players and to bring in depth, it's to elevate your floor for if injuries and when injuries happen, that you're not saying, okay, this true freshman is who we need to rely on now. I've said for years that I don't like relying on, say it again, Jadan Baugh is back to the Florida Gators in 2026. I've said for years, I don't like bringing in a true freshman and saying, I want him to play a significant role. Like, I want to depend on that. I don't like that, because freshmen are volatile. All college football players are volatile, but especially freshmen are volatile. You bring in a guy that has played significant snaps in his career, And if injuries, again, I keep saying when injuries happen, because it's football, injuries are going to happen. When injuries happen and he has to step in, now you have a guy that knows what he's doing. That's not going to be a deer in headlights. That's not going to be shell shocked. That's not going to be a complete liability. Now you have a different player to that. Now you have an experienced player who might not be great, right? Like he might not be as good as the starter, but he's got the experience to do his job. You've seen him play college football before, and you can trust him to basically just not F it up. That's why they're using the transfer portal like free agency here to fill out the back end of the roster. They're going to get some starter quality players. They are. But it seems like their approach is we're going to go get a few starters, a lot of depth that we can rely on, a lot of rotation that we can rely on. I kind of really mess with that strategy. I'm pretty cool with it. I'm not going to lie there. Pryor will be a great compliment to Baugh. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the thunder and lightning, right? Like Jaden Baugh is an ass kicker as a running, right? Complete ass kicker as a running back. And then you've got Evan Pryor, who runs a 4.31 reportedly, which even, like, let's say that's the usual lie, right? Let's say he runs a 4.38 or a 4.42. That's still fast as hell. I don't know how to tell you that. That's still fast as hell. And so I think that you go, hey, now you got this back that's going to just pummel you. Oh, and then by the way, once you're tired, we have someone that's just going to outrun you. That's tough, right? It's tough. That other back signing must have made him get his run right. Let's go. You know, I actually think it's the opposite. I think that Florida knew yesterday or earlier this morning, I think Florida knew that Jaden Baugh was going to resign. And I think that Florida took Evan Pryor knowing that Jaden Baugh was going to come back. And so they took Evan Pryor to say, hey, you're going to be our running back 2 or 3, because I still think Duke Clark should be in this conversation should he come back, which I think he is coming back. I just want to say that. But I don't know exactly if he signed a contract yet. But I think right now, like, you took Evan Pryor because you knew you were getting Jaden Baugh back. And so it's like, okay, you're going to be our running back 2, 2A, 2B, 3, whatever the hell we want to call it. You're going to be part of this running back room that plays and rotates in behind Jaden Baugh. And so I think Florida actually knew, and that's why they took him. I believe we're paying legit money for these guys. Everything I've heard from Florida Victorious, Zach, Edgar, and Mark is that we're top 10 NIL, somewhere around the 30 million mark. Okay, I'm going to say this. For Reform Salt, I'm going to read that again and then just said, I believe we are paying legit money for these guys. Everything I have heard from Florida Victorious, Zach, I'm assuming Abel Verdi, Edgar Thompson, and Mark Scott, I believe, etc., is that we are top 10 NIL, somewhere around the 30 million mark. I don't know about being top 10 NIL. I'll say that just because I don't know what other schools are spending or what other schools are saying they're spending, right? So I can't answer that one. I'm a Gainesville, Florida native, and I can tell you that if it has plenty of money, they're just super frugal. Yeah. Yes. I agree with you. That especially in the Napier, they had the money. They were just cheap. Napier was cheap. But for the NIL thing, and then we'll wrap this up because we've been live for almost an hour, and that was not the plan, but we're having a damn good time doing it. For the NIL thing, I don't know if Florida's top 10 NIL because I don't know what other schools are spending. Okay? I do know that Florida's NIL is higher than it's ever been right now. I do know that it is not the $30 million mark, and it's not around the $30 million mark. It is considerably higher than that. Okay? Which should be an indicator to say how much crazy money is in college football right now. Okay? So I will say Florida's not around the $30 million mark. They are considerably higher than that from what I've been told. Okay? $30 million would not be top 10 NIL. Say that. It's NIL is crazy. You also or sorry, let me rephrase that. NIL plus revenue sharing, which is now like schools paying players directly. So it's NIL plus revenue sharing. Okay. That's important to distinguish as well. So there's all that. Florida is spending money for these players. I don't like when people are like, oh, this isn't, they're being cheap. They're being this, they're being this. It's tough to say that they're bargain bin shopping or whatever you want to call it. Especially when people go, oh, we're getting the 104th ranked player in the portal. Portal rankings don't matter. Statistically, guys in the top 25 of the portal rankings are not like, they don't work out. Okay. Statistically. And they don't work out worth the money that they're getting, especially. Portal rankings don't matter. There's over 4,000 kids in the portal. And these recruiting services have like tops 10 recruiting evaluators. They're not watching 4,000 kids film and getting accurate analysis and accurate evaluations of these players. Especially when high school, like, you can get film where like the longer film is 8 minutes, right? But like in college, you're watching full games. It's different. Okay. I want to throw that out there. And so I just want to say, like, portal rankings don't matter because they're pretty much just how notable is his name. We'll say this and then we'll wrap up. Is Jaden Woods gone, or what is the status there? Jaden Woods is not gone at this moment. He is in the portal. He has taken a visit to Texas. John Summerall is supposed to visit him at some point I think this week, to try to revisit that and see if they can make it work. It's not done. They're still trying. They're still going. We'll see what happens with it. But I do think that it's one of those things where it's like, we're not going to know. He's going to have a lot of money thrown in his direction. He's going to have a lot of attention thrown in his direction. He's going to have a lot thrown in his direction. We just got to hope that the Florida Gators can pull it off and convince him to stay a Florida Gator. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day every day. We are available daily and free, whether it's in the podcast and on YouTube. Georgia Tech offensive lineman Harrison Moore is supposed to be on campus today. We are going to hope that he commits to the Florida Gators today, and we were going to hope that we get to go live there and discuss that. Worst case scenario, we will be going live tonight after the Florida Gators play the Georgia Bulldogs in basketball. We'll be going live immediately after that game, and we will be talking about this awesome transfer portal day tomorrow on Locked On Gators. Thanks for making Locked On Gators your first listen of the day. For Locked On Gators, I'm Brandon Olsen. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at WNS_Brandon. Find all my written work with New York Giants on SI and swampsignal.substack.com if you want to see scouting reports on these transfer portal players that are going to be coming up this weekend, or this week. Sorry, not this weekend. This week, we're going to have these scouting reports coming out on these players, and I will see you all next time.